Hello, everybody, and good morning. Welcome to our latest webinar, AI for Accounting. Hot topic for all of us. We just want to know how best to use these tools that everybody keeps speaking about. So as we warm up and run through some housekeeping items, I encourage you all to pop in the chat. Let us know where you're from and what you're excited about learning today. So today's session, as always, will be recorded and a copy of that will be sent to you alongside any resources that we mention and some other information after the webinar. If you do have questions during the webinar, please chuck it in the Q&A so that we can keep track of those. If we don't get to answer them live, we'll come back to you afterwards. But if you want to just have a little bit of a chat with each other, please feel free to do that in the attendee chat box. Now you see a poll up on the screen. We'd love to know whether or not you're currently working in public practice, and I can see most of you are, so that's exactly what we expect out of these webinars. Now, today, as you would know, is being brought to you by Ignition. So Ignition is, if you haven't heard of Ignition, Ignition is the leading revenue generation platform for accounting and professional services with over 8,000 customers globally. I personally have been using the software for, wow, I think nearly 10 years now, and it completely transformed my business. It integrates with all the leading cloud-based accounting apps, including Xero, QBO, MYOB, and it can streamline all of those really time-consuming tasks like sending out engagements, taking payments, raising invoices, and brings this level of clarity between you and your clients and the service that you offer them that is uncomparable to anything else that is available. If you want to know more about Ignition, including some of its exciting new AI features, please hang around after the webinar where I will be joined by my colleague Ethan, and we're going to run through a quick demo of Ignition. So, introducing myself, I am Rebecca Mahalik. I am an accountant like most of you online today, and I have been running my own practice for over 10 years, and I've been in the industry for more than 20 years now. I am a director at Business Depot, and I also am the head of accounting at Ignition, which means I get to do these cool, fun webinars with you and get to interview our awesome panel today to find out what they're doing in their own businesses. So today's guests, which will come on one by one so that we can dive deep into what they're doing with AI in their firms, are Sarah Lawrence, the founder and CEO of Hot Toast, Jason Robinson, Director at Future Advisory, and Shannon Smith, Managing Director at Transfer Pricing Solutions. And I'll give you a bigger insight on who these people are as they come on shortly. Quick run through our agenda first though. So we're going to run through how to assess AI and avoid wasted investment. Particularly when something's new and you're an early adopter, you can feel a little bit unsure about where to go. We're going to talk to the panelists around the tools that they use to solve real practice challenges, how to free up time for strategy and client relationships, and how to pick solutions that grow with your firm. So not something that's just going to last now, but something that will see you through the next few years, and how to do this and still build trust with clear policies and best practices. We'll be kicking off the content very shortly. However, before we go into that, I do want to talk to you a little bit about pricing insights. So AI is changing the way accounting firms work, and Ignition has already been putting things into practice inside its platform. If you are new to Ignition or if you're a current user, you may already know that there is AI in the service library, which helps you write professional service descriptions in seconds based on a whole range of different data that is able to pull across the database. Well, Ignition has taken that further and has designed pricing insights. As we know as accountants, one of the biggest challenges we have is knowing whether or not our prices are competitive and sustainable. Are you losing clients because your pricing is too high? Or could you be leaving money on the table because your pricing is too low? Or maybe you're just not doing a good job of actually explaining what your services are and aligning them to the right pricing. Well, now inside of Ignition, as you create a proposal or engagement for a client, you can cross-check your service description against pricing insights, and it takes all the guesswork out. It looks at the service name, the description, and the billing type, and will give you a range of pricing along with all the data and insights around why it has chosen that price for you and your firm based on your profile and the service that you're providing. It's absolutely life-changing, and I've only been using it for a little while, but it's definitely changed the way that we are doing things here at Business Depot. So stay on after the webinar, and we'll give you a quick insight on what that looks like. So first up, I'd love to introduce everybody to Sarah Lawrence. Hey, Sarah.
Hey Beck, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on another webinar. Sarah is a superstar and does lots of webinars with Ignition, and she was on one just yesterday. So thank you so much for coming back. Sarah is not unknown in our industry, and I'm sure lots of you already know who she is. Her passion for business was ignited at 8, which is just so cool, when she'd wake early to watch Business Sunday with her dad. I love that story. I don't mind mentioning it over and over again.
I love that the accountants love it and the agency owners like yesterday were a bit like, wow, we're lucky we've got Loz with us because this girl's a nerd.
But this is what we are in accounting, right? So after earning a Bachelor of Finance, she honed her skills in the UK working with diverse small and medium-sized companies across Europe. Again, super cool. Returning to Australia in 2014, Sarah found her niche with film, media and advertising. In 2016, she founded Hot Toast, a proud B Corp, to help small and medium businesses scale and unearth the story behind their numbers. An experienced and passionate FCPA, Sarah chairs the New South Wales Public Practice Committee, sits on the CPA Public Practice Advisory Committee, and co-founded Global Women's Accounting Influencers. She is a champion of diversity and drives the industry to lead in ESG, advisory, and next generation technology. Sarah, thank you again so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to break down what you're doing at Hot Toast.
Yeah, me too. I love you guys. So I'm always happy to jump on a webinar with you.
Fantastic. Now, Hot Toast uses RPA, which is robotic process automation, predictive AI, and workflow automation. When you are looking at all of these products and what to do at Hot Toast and evaluating a tool, how do you determine if it's actually going to solve one of your problems or if it's just a novelty? Because we can all just go for the shiny new toys.
And I totally get that. And that was a trap I fell into probably a decade ago around shiny new toys. The test is super simple. Does it give us back time? Does it reduce our costs? Does it put money on our bottom line and reduce errors? So, and is it a tool that that is solving a pain point that can't be solved by the current tech stack that we have in play? As most of you know, the more mature you become in a business, the harder that change management piece becomes. So we're super focused on looking at solutions while still feeling like we're being innovative when we kind of stress test these tools. The other caveat that we also have at the moment is probably in the last year and a half is the tool backed by investment and a reputable brand, so that it's not going to be a little startup that potentially will fall over and we basically do all the testing and training and integrate it into our business and then it kind of folds after a period of time. So aligning ourselves with the bigger players in the marketplace, more established people, so that we know that it's a solid product that's going to keep kind of generating new product advancements off the back of it. So yeah, it's a bit of a process at the moment because I really love this space. A lot of the testing falls with me. I do have another team member that loves it as well, who acts as my 2IC. But for me, honestly, I spend a lot of time tinkering, and then if it kind of passes that test, then I'll start talking to the team around how we can integrate it at Hot Toast.
Yeah, I am the same as you, and I end up doing a lot of the tinkering and testing myself whenever we do anything at Business Defo. However, I am starting to make those calls that I am not always the best person anymore. We need to do that. Now, with the tools that you've implemented, after you go through this testing process, what sort of insights are you getting from the tools that you could not have gotten otherwise, and how do you validate that they're actually real? And in this, I'm sort of alluding to these things around people are talking about you can't trust ChatGPT, for example. So how do you know that the tools that you're implementing, the information that's giving back to you is really real and validated?
Yeah, so I think we've all got the whole like, oh, we can't test and what that, but there is an internal control policy that we're kind of using in terms of cross-checking data and whatnot. So one, I think that's why first and foremost, I think that's why when you're looking at the technology that you're using, like for instance, Ignition. Let's take Ignition. At the moment, you've got the pricing insights. That's now the functionality that's now being built in. That is such quality data because it's coming from a data source that is reliable, that we know is tested. We know that it is across different firms in Australia and across the territory. So in terms of that, we know that, like, you know, from a validation perspective, I always lean into that data first, right? Can I use the current tools that we're using? I love the pricing insights. I know that we're on an initial webinar and I don't want to push it too hard, but it is, please test it out. Please test it out, because I do think you're going to leave money on the table if you can't compare where you're sitting across the marketplace. So that's one part of it, I think, is leaning into the tools, the trusted tools that you already have for validation. And the second part of it is, when I'm doing anything from an advisory perspective, I'm always going to data sets as well around like government data and basically statistics. So there's always a cross-check in place. Anything that I do in my business, whether it's RPA and it's cross-checks from that, there is always going to be a reconciliation and a validation process off the back of that. Do not get lazy. I think that just because ChatGPT sounds confident, always go back to the source data and make sure that, you know, that you're not sending out something to a client because ChatGPT confidently told you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, because we don't know where that information, particularly when we're talking about ChatGPT as a tool, is coming from. And everything that we do is actually, its outputs is based on our input. So everyone needs to remember that. You have to be really, really clean with what you're putting into something to be able to then feel very confident about what comes out the other end.
And so
Now,
at the back of that, I think what you'll see over the next couple of years is you'll see these super like hyper verticalized like tech companies coming out that just have these amazing data sources like Ignition and whatnot, because that's your moat, right? You've got this amazing moat of like this rich data that, you know, you've taken years and years and years to collate. And I think that's going to be a really powerful way for you to align yourself with, you know, the technology in the future as an accountant or advisory firm.
absolutely. It's definitely where AI is heading for people who are dealing with it in a really smart way. Now, you've invested quite a bit of time and effort, and a little bit earlier than most of us, particularly around your RPA. When you're looking at cost versus ROI, how are you measuring your ROI on your investment? Because that can be tricky. I think about that all the time myself, when even considering my own time and where it's best placed.
Look, we've been super bullish with RPA. We kind of went on this journey about 2 years ago. And I would encourage accountants and bookkeepers and people in the industry to do what you do with your clients, right? So go through and do a cost benefit analysis. Like, I know that sounds so obvious, and I'm probably sounding like I'm berating you like a like a teacher, but do the same, like practice what you preach. Go through and say, if I have this investment, what is the payback? What is the efficiency off the back of it? And what does that potentially look like? Your two big pillars are obviously going to be, what's it going to save me in terms of, you know, cost in terms of wages? And then the other part of that is the opportunity cost. If I build something off the back of this that reduces my, you know, my time cycle to get our compliance out, like we're at the 2nd of October and we're 80% through our tax requirements for FY25, and the real blocker at the moment is the humans in the loop, right? So if we had more humans, we would probably have it done by now. But what that's done is that has unlocked a huge amount of capacity now post-November for my business. So that's my opportunity cost. You know, like, what are we doing with that time? Let's get really focused on the kinds of clients that we want to be looking at, that we want to be engaging at, the kind of advisory services that we want to be doing. So it's twofold. Do the numbers, do the work. You all know how to do a cost benefit analysis, look at your wage costs and efficiencies, and then look at what the opportunity cost is that on the upside, and then read the numbers and make your call from there.
That is really solid advice, and I cannot believe you're 80% of the way through. I thought we were doing good and you were smashing it. So you said that you went on this journey, you started it 2 years ago. What did it look like at Hot Toast to get ready for that? Did you have to make cultural changes in your team?
Look, the technology the technology shift has been just as interesting as the cultural one at Hot Toast. So I have been very, very clear with the team around where I think this industry is going to go in the next couple of years, and how, as a business that wants to focus on purpose and impact, what we need to be doing right now to make sure that we leverage the technology change that's coming. And that hasn't always been easy, because you've got people that have spent their entire career focused on a specific part of accounting, transactional management accounts, doing all the things. And now I'm basically coming in as their boss going, okay, guys, I think there's going to be a level of disruption here. How can we basically disrupt Hot Toast, and we're all on the journey together? And that's easy for an owner to say. That's really hard for team members to take on board as well. So it has been one of my most focus points in the last couple of years, because I probably underestimated the stress or friction it would cause with people. But I've just doubled down on being like, okay, let's rewrite your job descriptions. Let's rewrite your KPIs. Let's rewrite how you are coming on this journey with us as a business. And the reason that I'm giving you all of these extra skills and training and everything like that, so that ultimately in a couple of years' time or ongoing, you're going to be in the best position possible to evolve in this industry into and in this business. So yeah, I would just say, do the work with your team as well, and make sure that you've emphasized the importance of the culture as well as the technology that's going to be coming into your business.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Any change does need a change management process. And as business owners, when we get excited about things, we forget not everyone else feels the same way. It's just there are always those team members where this is the job, not their life, and that's a bit different. Now, a lot of small business owners, not just accountants, but our clients as well, only have very small budgets to really invest in this space, whether it's AI or RPA, or even just improving their automation with tools that exist already. What advice do you have for selecting these tools without doing an overspend?
Yeah, so I think start small and start in a way. So if you want to start tinkering around, there's also obviously like a free period that happens. Please do your due diligence from a privacy and security perspective as well. Just understand where your data is going, where it's sitting, if it's sitting offshore or onshore, and what they're going to do with that. So disclaimer there. But I would say start small, and we've really kind of moved from that tinkering stage now, which I think was probably about 2 years ago, into like this middle stage of like prompt engineering around like how can we get these tools into our workflows so that we actually start to see an efficiency ROI off that. So I would say start small. I was having a chat with a potential client yesterday, and they asked the same advice to me, and I said to them, start with ISs or BASs, because it is a very simplistic process that you can automate very effectively and quickly. And then it gives the team a real kind of taster as to what this is potentially going to look like once we all go on this journey together. So low-hanging fruit first. Just remember the humans involved in the process, and you'll get better buy-in if you kind of take everyone on the journey. I would just have a shout out to some other tools that you might be looking at, like Lovable, Make, Cursor, Claude Code, Perplexity, Grok. All of these kind of tools, you can kind of jump in, see what's going on, just get a bit of a taste of what's happening, set up some really easy agentic workflows, and then kind of have a bit of a play around with it from there. And the only other thing I would say is, if you are not that person in your business, nominate a technology superhero that is and really loves this space, and make sure that they become the kind of accountability person in your business for that, because ultimately it's moving at such a pace, and it is much easier for you to leverage if you have a base understanding of this up into agentic, as opposed to if you just are coming in from it in a couple of years with absolutely no clue. So that would be my tips.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was so great. And look, particularly with any change or anything that you're implementing, change management is important, but that champion is critically important. And document everything. Document. Use AI tools to document everything, and make sure that if that champion does leave, that you're not left high and dry would be my suggestion as well, because that can be very disruptive.
Awesome. Always have the good tips, Beck. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us again, Sarah. Have an amazing day. Okay, and now moving on to our next guest, also not someone we haven't seen many times before in our webinars. Thank you again for joining us, Jason. So Jason Robinson is a director of Future Advisory, an award-winning firm known for helping individuals and SMEs turn complex tax and business decisions into practical, profitable outcomes. With over 15 years in public practice, he's not only a trusted advisor, but also a business owner himself, co-founding Coff & Co., a coffee brand that keeps him caffeinated, as well as his clients. I love that you've got that on the side. That's so cool.
Good. I mean, I'm drinking it right now, just like repping the brand always.
Amazing. Jason is also the chair of CPA's Australian Victorian Public Practice Committee, a member of Xero's Partner Advisory Council, and an APAC advocate for Ignition. He's also the co-host of the Numbers Game podcast, where he shares a mic, talking strategy, growth, and the realities of business ownership. It's a great podcast. I do suggest all of you hop on and have a listen to it when you're, stuck in traffic or at the gym or whatever, whenever you've got that free time.
If you need to be put to sleep, this is these dulcet tones. Good for falling asleep, my wife tells me.
Oh, that's a good one. So Jason, as an early adopter of generative AI, how do you assess if a tool is mature enough for your firm's needs?
Good question. I think as an early adopter, it was signing up to every single tool under the sun and then kind of half-assing using it or exploring it, and learnt pretty quick it was better to deep dive into a few tools that were going to be more practical. So I think that was the problem at first. It was, getting excited by the hype and then realizing, okay, cool, what can I actually do with this? So I think Sarah touched on it as well, was looking for a practical fit, like something that you can actually use and embed into your processes to make a difference to the team, to free up time. And whether it's looking for a solution for your firm or looking for something that works with your clients, I think Sarah, again, she touched on many great points, but it's also something that implements with your existing stack. If you go and try and use a new tool and it doesn't connect with anything, you don't have the skills or capability to connect it to your systems, and it's not something that's easy for your team to dive into and use, you're going to work out pretty quick that you're not going to get the buy-in or the ability to use it day to day to adopt it and roll it out and get the capabilities or the gains. So, when we do look for the tools to use, it is for now, look, in full transparency, I love listening to Shannon and Sarah because they're so far ahead of the general day-to-day punter of what we're doing. I jump onto someone who's been experimenting for 2 years and still get excited listening to what they've done with RPA, which I can even see people in chat saying, what's that? I was the same. Somebody's talking about RPA. I'm like, it sounds familiar, but what is it? So don't feel like if you don't know it, but this is a good opportunity to start looking into it. Mature, it's not so much about mature, it's about practical fit. So have a look at what works. And most of the time, a lot of the tools you're already using are going to have embedded new capability that you may not have experienced yet, just like Ignition's pricing tool. I think, I experimented with that, and it's just getting that confidence to actually go, what was I going to charge, and have a look at what everyone else is charging and go, oh, okay, maybe I need to, gain some confidence and maybe experiment with a little bit, and push the boundaries and see what happens. Because most of the time we send a quote and it gets accepted and you go, oh, maybe I was a little bit too cheap there. So experiment with tools you've already got, and then test for practical fit.
Yeah, I love what you said there about the pricing though, because absolutely every time I have an engagement that is accepted too quick, you have that moment where you pat yourself on the back. It's like, yeah, I sold that well, but also maybe we need to be a bit more expensive so that people think about it for a little bit longer. It's okay.
100%. 100%. I think as a professional, all of us are guilty of maybe underquoting or undercharging for fear of, losing the client or not winning the new client. But I think, like all of us, there's so much work and we're so bogged down in work that the more we can value what we do and increase our prices, the better off the whole profession will be.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit around how to pick the right tools for future advisory. Once you've got those tools in, do you have an evaluation framework to assess whether or not they're actually working in the business?
Yeah, I think most of it usually starts top down. So Greg and I will experiment with the tools, and then we'll select a few additional people in the firm to roll those tools out. So whether it's, things like meeting summaries, actions from meetings that get sent out to clients, goals driven things, AI insights from a tool like maybe Sift Analytics. So as we continue to experiment, it's starting with a couple of users, then rolling it out to more users, because then the whole time you're testing for what gets broken. You're testing for, was there some feedback that you weren't expecting? So rather than, I guess, rolling it out, we're a team of 27, rolling it out to 27 people and wanting it to be used overnight, there is a rollout process of starting with a few people, allocating a few more, and then today we've got a full team training with Sift Analytics to be able to roll out even more of the features that we're not using at the moment. And we're at a point now where we've done so much testing and trialing and mucking around with it that it's finally ripping the chute and going, cool, everyone's diving in now because we're so happy with the capabilities and the efficiencies that we've gained, that it's now time that it's not just a few select users that are using it for certain clients. We want to use this across the board and, push future advisory even further forward with that use. And then when it comes to, the evaluation framework, I remember 2 years ago when I first started using ChatGPT, or however many years it is now, I actually got ChatGPT to write the framework, the policies, the procedures, and the framework, just because, and that was an example of, I could think of it myself and I could note things down, but I started with experimenting and massaging back and forward to get the right thing, and, taught it all about future advisory and what we did and what was expected. So it was those early days of learning prompts to know how to talk to it properly, how to ask for the right things. And by the time that first version of a policy procedure of how to use AI safely or how to use ChatGPT, I was like, oh, great, there's some really good points here around always gets checked by a human. Nothing gets copy and pasted and sent straight away unless a human intervenes and checks first. So there's all those little things that are really valuable as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. We can't forget the role that humans and common sense play. But I've done the same thing with ChatGPT, and I don't. I've seen my colleagues or other people put something in there, take it away, and then in Word they'll edit it. I do that in ChatGPT, so we're both learning together, and now it knows me, the way I talk, and the business, and it's life changing. It's so quick to knock up things now. So at Future Advisory, so we've got all these tools, and I know that we've still experience errors or issues when using AI, particularly in our accounting workflows, because it's early days, so working through the bugs. So when you've had those, how do you try to safeguard against them?
Yeah, I think it's every day going in with a bit of a skeptic. Be a skeptic around the answers that AI is giving you. If it is, for example, ChatGPT, and you're asking for tax advice or you're asking it to solve certain problems, if you always have a bit of a professional skepticism that is it right and challenging the answer, that's the mindset that you have to have. And you also have to teach those around you to have that mindset too, because I think you could jump in and use it a couple of times and get correct answer, and then you can be complacent and go, oh, well, the last 10 times I've used ChatGPT, it's given me the correct answer. All good, we're sweet. But it's when you become complacent that all of a sudden something slips in that shouldn't be there. There's an hallucination or, I call it a bit of a ChatGPT brain fart. But you don't want to get complacent. You always want to know that, I think you see it a lot in presentations nowadays. It's treating AI as a junior assistant or, a junior helper rather than, a senior resource that you trust to get things right and go get things shot out the door. So if you have that level of AI is the first draft and a human is the one that always intervenes to double check things, make sure that it's accurate, it's correct, because at the end of the day, as tax agents, as BAS agents, as people running a business, you need to trust and know what you're sending out to your clients is correct. And the last thing you want to do is just trust that an AI system has spat out something that you can trust without you reading it and double checking it and challenging it. I think that's part of the experimentation of this, is to make sure that you talk back and forward to ensure, where did you get that answer from? How confident are you in that answer? Can you show me the sources of where that answer came from? And the more you can build that out and ensure, you feel confident too. And again, a lot of it also comes down to practicing it on your own business too. Ask questions, look for answers and results, and build that confidence. But again, at the end of the day, you're only as good as what you put in. So I think a big part of, understanding how to work with AI to improve workflows or results of, questions you're asking is how you engineering what you're asking it for. Because a lot of the time it's the garbage in, garbage out. If you ask a question poorly worded, you're going to get a poor answer.
Yeah, it's interesting that the more we talk to AI, the better our communication skills actually have to get, not worse.
Yeah.
So you've been using it for a while, and I know that you now, particularly with Sift Analytics, have you got a recent project where you've introduced these AI capabilities with your clients, and what surprised you about the process?
Yeah, look, I think one of the surprises about the process is, and this may be wrong and maybe not everyone has this mindset, but I just assume most people nowadays are using basic AI. Like they're using it day to day, they're asking questions, they're planning out their weeks, they're using it to help book holidays. But often it's, getting in a room, whether it's virtual or face to face with a client, and then showing them some of the basics of how we use AI, whether it's, our meeting notes, our actions that come from the meetings, summarizing some insights from a P&L and balance sheet and going, what are the actions and insights for this client? How do we improve margins? Just those conversation starters. And clients are gobsmacked going, wow, like this is amazing. Like, okay, well, then it's, mucking around with the what if scenarios. So based on this 12-month forecast, what if we change the hourly rate of our plumbers? What if we were able to reduce our costs? What if we add a new employee? So all these what if scenarios that you can kind of work in with some AI tools, especially, mucking around with the forecasting tool in Sift and then using the AI insights has been, and doing it live with the client too, or even giving them access now that they're going to be able to access Sift themselves with some of the capability through Xero. It's kind of pretty cool to see those those light bulb moments of, oh, wow, this is really cool. But I've never had a client sit there and go, this is going to replace you. They're going, cool, like this means we can do more work together, right? Or this means I can ask you more questions about my business and you can give me more help. So it's boosting a conversation, but at the end of the day, the real value is the human advice. Like you can just get that deeper connection with your client. And that's what we want to be doing. And, as I said, I was surprised. I sometimes think that even the basic use that we're doing with AI around, as I touched on before, to then see clients go, wow, that's really cool. Can you teach me how to do that? Or what could I use AI for in my business? And I think that becomes a big space that we can play in as, as accountants and advisors and bookkeepers, us to put the mindset of, actually, what could my clients implement that would make their life better? If they aren't up to date with how to use technology or RPA or AI or any of these tools, if we start to suggest some apps or tips and tricks that they can use that will improve their day to day, again, we're going to become the valued human advisor that is helping them change their lives and their business.
Yeah, I think that that's the next thing. 10 years ago, we put Xero and Dext and all these other tools into every single client. So
Yeah,
this is the
Clip
next step of our
advisors.
journey. Yeah, it's very exciting. Look, and carrying on a little bit more from what you're talking about in that advisory space, and we've talked about advisory before. When you're diving into insights with clients, it's very bespoke work. You really need to understand what's going on with your clients. So when you adopt AI in those practices, particularly amongst like your wider team, where is that balance between the automation, the technology, and then human judgment? And in advisory, that relationship's so important. So you've got to not forget the people.
Yeah, it is a huge balance between how much you can automate and then how much you continue to have humans involved. But even looking at a firm like Sarah's, where 80% of her compliance is automated and maybe nearly done, and Sarah still touched on the blocker or the people that are in the way there are still the humans. You need a human to do the final checks. You need the human to do the communication. And maybe you don't need a human to do the communication, but it's still a really nice to have. I've had people trying to sell, an AI avatar Jason who can look at the P&L and balance sheet and then do a video that'll go out with the set of financials. And I'm like, oh, I think maybe that's just taking it that one bit too far. Like, do my clients really want to see an AI video of me explaining their P&L and balance sheet, as opposed to making that part of the balance and the evolution of this journey is that my time is freed up to make sure I can do those calls or film a real video of me sitting there running through it and shoot it over to them with a Loom link so they can watch it in their own time with its own little AI summary of what I was talking about if they do want to skip ahead. So yeah, I think, look, as compliance continues to get automated, and I mean, we've talked about it for so long that, we need more time for advisory. Clients aren't getting enough strategy or business growth advice. And that does rely on a lot of human element, the empathy, us understanding what a client's goals are, where are they trying to get to in their lives. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and I've in full disclosure, Shannon coming on next. I went and did a 2-day course with Shannon that Shannon's put on down in. Well, this one was in Mornington. I know a few other people in the room. I think I saw Bo
I did it
online,
last
and
week too.
you did it last week, Beck. This training into what we can automate. So the more we automate compliance, great, but freeing up human capital or human time to do more of the things that we want to do and that our team want to do. Like we exist to help clients, to have deep client relationships and make their lives easier and better. And if we have more time to do that, all of a sudden I'm excited to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, I am most days, but I'm more excited moving forward at the idea of my team not being bogged down with BAS prep and IAS prep and downloading work papers and manually clicking a bunch of things that now, looking at the world of Power Automate and RPA, I'm going, like brain is exploding at the potential and the possibilities out there of what we can do. And there's a few firms that are doing it really well. And luckily there's people like Shannon and Sarah and Bo who's on the online that are sharing it with others around to make sure that we're uplifting the accounting and bookkeeping profession to show that we can all rise together and do this. We are capable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jason.
My pleasure.
Sorry, I have one more question for you if you've got a minute. I forgot to ask you about client confidentiality. We got so excited about the advisory, I forgot about the boring
absolutely
bit.
not. Can't answer it. No, look, I mean, like anything, just tread carefully. Like sensitive data is really important. I mean, even if you pay for the Teams version, part of the training, this week was to change the name anyway. Like, don't put in client sensitive data if you can avoid it. Obviously, if you are paying for, the upgraded versions of ChatGPT and the other tools that say that they're not going to use your client's information for training the module, obviously there's an element of trust there that you'd hope that never happens, but things can go wrong with tech and these kind of things. So where possible, go the extra mile. Like, don't put sensitive data into public models. Where you can avoid it, don't put sensitive data into non-public models. But yeah, advice is always pay for an enterprise level, like pay for the Teams version, pay for the upgrade that says there is no training on the model, and education. Education is the absolute key, as my cat's trying to escape the room. So education is key. Train your team. One thing our IT team do really well is constantly checking our team for vulnerability. So we test our own team, we try and hack our own business and show for weakness. So education, the number one place where a firm gets knocked over when it comes to cybersecurity and these things is human weakness and a human mistake. So it's always about education to the team first.
Thank you so much, Jace.
Pleasure.
Have an amazing day.
Will do. Thanks, team. Have a good one.
Okay, now our next guest, who has been mentioned by both of our previous guests, is Shannon Smith, who has been an absolute superstar in the industry, going that extra mile trying to teach us all about RPA. Thank you so much for joining me today, Shannon.
No problem. Great to be here. Hopefully the internet's all working well. Just before we went live, it was a bit funny, so I hope it's all good.
These things happen. Now, Shannon is the founding director of Smart Business Solutions, which a lot of you would have heard of. It is a multi-award-winning advisory group that integrates accounting, financial planning, self-managed super fund strategy, business advisory, and lending all under one roof. Like, you do everything. It's so cool. In 2024, Shannon spearheaded an in-house robotic process automation transformation, training her 20-person team to build their own bots with Power Automate, ChatGPT, and VBA scripting. What began as a drive to eliminate low-value tasks became a complete cultural shift, with over 60% of her team now creating automations that save thousands of hours annually and enabling more client-focused work. Shannon demonstrates that small and mid-sized firms can successfully harness AI, systemize operations, and upskill their people to work smarter, not harder, while she continues to lead, mentor, and inspire as a national voice at industry events, including XeroCon, which was super cool to see your session again.
Yeah, XeroCon was amazing. It was incredible to kind of talk about our journey that we had been on, that sometimes I think as accountants, we do put our blinkers on and we're just doing what we're doing on a day-to-day basis and working out that actually what we were doing was not what everyone else is doing, and being able to share that now as you've also gone to the workshops. It's amazing to see how many bots everyone's now creating.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing ever, and at all different ages. And for full disclosure, I went to Sharon's course last week and I took along my 14-year-old son, who has done nothing other than play with bots for the last week. It's been incredible. So we'll dive straight into the questions now, though. So Shannon, your services and work span many areas, from transfer pricing to advisory to compliance. And everything in between. Where in all of those services that you offer do you find is most ripe for AI investment?
Yeah. So I guess when I look at it, the interesting thing is when I first started to go and look at AI and RPA, I thought they were the same thing. So actually someone put in the chat, what is RPA? Very good question, because I thought they were both the same thing. So I guess what I look at is, so robotic process automation is anything that is repetitive. So if I see functions within our business that are taking data from here, putting it to there, taking from here, putting it to there, that's repetitive process automation potential. And then on the AI side is looking at, and so the AI I feel like has a few more brains around it, but the AI side is, well, what can I get by pulling information together and getting it to get, like what Jason said, that first draft for me then to be able to do that. So looking even at, looking at business planning, I get my IBIS World Industry Report, I grab information on the business, put it all into Copilot and get a first run so I can start going forward. I've got a business planning session this afternoon with a client. So I've, gathered their website. I've gathered all their information. They've done a bit of a questionnaire for me. I've got the industry report. I've listed their competitors. And then I've asked Copilot to put together a high level business plan for this client and what key questions should I ask this client to further enhance his business plan. That would have taken me quite a bit of work to do in the first part. So that's where the AI, and I'm seeing the AI helping on that side. The robotic process automation is where I'm then actually seeing that to help on any of those functions and tasks that you are just repeating with the data. So so it's kind of two separate things. And I thought it's just good to kind of define those two, because I used to think it was the same thing until I got more involved in working out what it was.
Yeah, I was the same, but they're completely different. And I love that example about the AI because I've done that too. Gee, business plans can be knocked out quickly now. But there is this element where it still requires me and my 20 years experience to read it and understand and double check it, which is some of the stuff Jason was talking about. Human judgment can't go away here with the advisory. Now, Shannon, you hosted a session at XeroCon, which was super cool. We fired our RPA provider and built our own bots. Now, considering a lot of us, including myself, confused AI and bots in the first place, can you talk about that journey where you were, you'd had an external provider, but then just decided this is not working and we're going to do it ourselves, and successfully?
Yeah. So we, like most people, I thought, well, I'm not a tech person. I mean, I love tech and I try and restrain myself for chasing the next shiny, it's the shiny, tech product that's out there. I mean, actually we've been on PI probably about the same time as yourself back in 2014. It was shiny and I went after it, and I'm glad because it's worked out very well for us. But so I used an external developer because I thought I'm not going to know how to create robots. I actually never know what RPA versus AI was at that point. We had a lot of frustration with the external developers. They said they had done it a number of times. It took a long time. And say Xero changed something within Xero, it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to fix things. And so I had been following this person on LinkedIn who was actually building these robots, was an accountant, ex-auditor, building these robots from Singapore, followed him and then actually reached out to him and had him actually train up our team. Now, I didn't have him train up the team. He told me that they'd be building robots by the end of 2 days. That was not my intent. I actually wanted them to understand more what's possible, because I thought if they understand more what's possible, then we'll be able to better communicate with our developers. But as it turned out, within a few weeks of going through and learning this, we were able to actually build these robots ourselves. And that has been really good. I think overall, bringing that in-house, starting with small little robots, I guess you could say. The bots are like kind of, it's a program working in your computer when you go, it's not going to be a little robot running across the screen. But I guess being able to build them ourselves means when there's been an issue, we've been able to go in and fix it very quickly. Now, how can we do this today and we couldn't do it before? The likes of Power Automate and VBA, which is part of Excel, have been there for years, but why we couldn't use it that much before is because we didn't know how to talk to it. We didn't know how to do the scripting. And now we can use ChatGPT and Copilot to help us write the code that enables us to do it. And that's what wasn't available to us even a year ago. So that's what's changed in that world.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because that's sort of what I brought back from your session that I went to last week. And I was talking to my husband about it. He's like, man, I used to write code 20 years ago. How do you not know how to do this? But I never had to do it. I never had to, but now I can because I can get the code out of ChatGPT and Copilot. It's really cool. Now, when you undertake this training and your team undertakes AI and RPA training, what skills are the most important or most critical? So I went to this course and other people will do these sorts of courses. What are the most critical skills that we should be expecting our teams to bring back from the training?
Yeah, so I think, well, firstly, your gamers are going to be your best at doing this because they think in the way in which some of this works. But I think it's really coming down to, like everything in your business, you need to look at what am I trying to fix? Now, when everyone just kind of discovered offshoring, they threw all of this work offshore, but didn't think, is the process right? So go through your systems and processes and map it out and then say, what can we automate in those particular parts of the process? What should we automate? What is the best use? If it saves 30 minutes, then why bother? If it saves an hour and a half, then yes, that's a high priority. Even when we looked at what processes to automate, we realized that we spent about 1,000 hours a year on preparing BASs. So that was one of our big first ones. We've done a lot of automations in the administration side of things with the business, and that has saved a lot of time. So it's really making sure that you understand the process of what you want to automate rather than just trying to automate something and thinking back to that, when people were offshoring, and we have no one offshore because we replaced them with robots, basically. But thinking about that process of what you're trying to automate and be really clear on your actual process so that you can actually systemize it from that perspective. Because that, I think, bringing those skills back and doing that prep work up front with each thing that you're going to. So if we have a process, whether it be admin or accounting, that we want to automate, we actually kind of map it out and we say, what's the start of that process? What's next? Who does what? Because sometimes we might think it's repetitive and that we're not thinking when we do it. But when you actually map it out, you realize there are elements that you do need to think in it. So maybe the RPA can't do all of it, only part of it. So that's probably a really important skill. And then starting with something small, because it is overwhelming. And I guess it's a bit, everyone who's spoken today has talked about tinkering. You've just got to play and tinker with things and, start small and try and do one automation process and then build on it from there.
Yeah, and automating BASs is amazing, but that is also a very big task as well. So maybe not the first thing that you actually do in your business, but looking for something that you can knock off that's repetitive and that you're doing all the time. So when you're looking to entrust, because you have had developers work on this, and now you also have your internal team working on AI and RPA, what sort of skills are you looking at when you're looking to entrust these processes with your team? Because it just feels like to me now your standard accounting degree doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah, I guess I think it's a problem solving. It's having that ability and the curiosity to want to solve the problems and that methodical. And accountants, generally speaking, we are quite methodical. So I think we're all well set up to be able to go through robotic process automation and AI, because the way in which we often think is following processes and systems. So being able to do that, what I do really love about this, it's a bit like when Xero first came out, quite a while now, it empowered more junior staff to actually be able to make a difference in the business. Whereas normally, I know when I started, you had to wait till, you'd been in the business a very long time to actually speak to clients and get to that part. So I think I don't need to be the one, and I can tell you all of my team are better at creating robots than me. I may have been the first one to be tinkering and seeing how we're going to do it, but I've now kind of passed that on, and I haven't probably kept up to speed as much as they have because they now keep playing with the different robots that they're creating. And so I think it's kind of giving them the time to play as well. But we are methodical, getting that set up and actually trying to kind of have that courage or confidence to try a robot and then see what else they can do with it. And, okay, that one didn't work. What else can you do? And I see that the team will work together. One of them will say, oh, well, I created one that did this. Oh, that process, that flow, as they call it, that might work with mine. So they bounce back and forth, with each other, and just being able to share. I mean, we're kind of trying to, I guess I don't want to become the next trainer on doing all of this, but I'm just trying to share it because so many people have reached out to me as we've done it. And now I've got, Daryl coming from Singapore many times. And I think the more all of us are talking about it, the more, I've seen even since last week, those that did in Sydney are sharing the different robots that they're coming out with robots that I hadn't thought of us doing yet. It hadn't been on our radar. So I think with all of us, if we keep that dialogue going, we can all benefit from it as well.
And it's fantastic. And even just last week, I had a question about a client issue, spoke to Shannon about it. Within 15 minutes, the amazing gentleman sitting next to you had pulled through tax legislation to double check our answer. Now, that is not completely the robots doing it. You and I were very confident about our answer, but having someone technology be able to confirm that, yes, we are right, without having to scour through pages and pages of legislation. There's so many different applications here.
Yeah.
Now, looking ahead, what trends in AI and RPA and accounting do you believe will be game changers over the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think there's still going to be a lot of change coming. And even though we're quite ahead with this technology, I get overwhelmed every other week going, does it stop? Can we just have a break for a little bit? It does excite me on one point, but I do think that we're going to see more and more where we're going to automate some of those repetitive functions and then spend more time with our clients. So I'm trying to train up the team at a more junior level in more of the business advisory that may have actually been more for the senior team members and getting them more involved in maybe that first cut of the business plans, maybe the first cut of those different types of situations, because I do think that we're going to see that as more of an opportunity. Clients are going to want our help more, and this is where we can actually help them in, and Jason was saying before, in even sharing these tools. I think as accountants, we've been really good with adapting new tools that have come out. Often clients in their small business, they're focusing on their business. They don't get exposed. They don't have a network like we do that enables us to be able to share these different tools. So I really think that it's going to keep evolving, but I think the person's not going to go away. We still need people, and my focus is if we can automate what is repetitive and spend more time in front of our clients, that's going to be a win for the client and a win for us and more enjoyable. I'm going out this afternoon to do a business planning at a client who it's actually on a farm. So we're going to be walking on, it's a farm that they do a lot of things with children. So I've said, I'll come out to you. I want you to show me what you do. I want you to show me the different activities you offer, because that's going to help me be a better advisor to them as well.
Absolutely. It feels like we've gone around in a circle. We put in Xero and all these automation tools a decade ago and freed up time to do advisory. Then we got bogged down in all the legislative changes and labor shortages and all these things. It feels like now we have that opportunity to get back out in front of our clients again. And it is, that's what I love. That's what my team loves. So being able to do that is very exciting. Thank you again, Shannon. That was so great. And your course, fantastic as well. I know there's been some comments in the attendee chat around the details of the accountant that you used in Singapore. If you have a look, I think it's on the Smart Business website, the courses that Shannon's running, the gentleman that she engaged from Singapore is actually running those. So that is the best way to get in front of him and learn what you need to do to bring back to your team. We can share those details afterwards as well. Thank you again, Shannon. Have an amazing day. Enjoy the farm.
Thanks.
Okay, and just as a last wrap up, I want to thank all of our amazing speakers today. They've really shared some amazing insights and given us all some really great hints and tips of what to do if you're looking at bringing AI or robotic process automation into your business. If you do want to really dive in and get some of those hands-on tools, we will share some details about these courses that Shannon has been running. I believe she's running some more in December. I went to it last week and I highly recommend them. Now, before we move on to our demo, I'd love to just let you all know about a webinar that we've got next week where we're going to dive in quite deep on the new pricing insights in Ignition, which is the latest AI feature inside Ignition. I recommend everybody sign up right now. There is a one-click registration that has popped up on the screen. You will learn some fantastic tools and how you can price with confidence using this new AI feature. Now, without further ado, I'd love to introduce Ethan Cooney, who will be helping us learn all about pricing insights inside Ignition today, running through a bit of a demo. Thanks for joining me, Ethan.
Thank you so much, Beck. Appreciate it. Just making sure you can hear me coming through there.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Great discussion. Again, thank you to all of the panelists. I loved listening to that. Shannon has posted the link to her events in the chat as well, raving feedback from Beck and Jay. So make sure you go and attend those where you can. Thanks for giving me a bit of time just to share some more information on the new feature that we've just released today. Very, very exciting to have this finally out in the wild. And Beck, I know you've been privy to some early testing, so we're going to keep you around here to give us some feedback and make sure that I'm on track and not telling any furfies as we go and demo how this looks. But for those who are not yet familiar with Ignition, we are focused on helping you optimize everything around your client onboarding, your engagements, your pricing, and your payment collection as well. So we've released a lot of features. I know there's a lot of customers on the call today. We've released a lot of new stuff over the last year, even down to qualification forms, capturing information from clients, management of your sales pipeline using a deals style funnel, and now AI-powered price insights as well, which I'm going to show you today. So super excited to get into it. Let me flick across here to a bit of a demo as well and just show you practically how this works. So this would be familiar to you if you have used Ignition in the past, but what I'm going to do is actually start by showing you just what a proposal looks like really briefly from the client's point of view. So this should connect the dots for you if you've not yet seen how Ignition works. So when you send out an engagement through the Ignition platform, we basically pull together the proposal, the fee estimate, the scope of work, and give you the ability to capture payment details from your clients all in one platform. So you can see here an example of a really schmick looking proposal with an introductory message and a video, all of which is driven out of a library of templates, which I'll show you shortly as well. So you can have this customized to look and reflect your brand. You can present either a single quote or scope, or you can present up to 3 options and or packages for your clients as well, if that's something that you've considered in the past. But the key thing here is that we're helping you to be really clear on exactly what the client is paying for and what they're getting. So we have a whole host of services that you can leverage with recommended words to use and all of these templates which can be customized and saved back to your own firm so that you can get these proposals out quickly, make sure that you're compliant, and then make sure that expectations are set properly with your clients as well. On pricing, this is one of the most common, if not the most common question that I've certainly heard over the last almost 7 years of working here, and that is, are there recommended prices or benchmarked prices that Ignition provides for services? For many years, what we've done is do a pricing survey, which many of you might have seen in the past, where we survey several hundred firm owners across Australia and New Zealand around what they're charging for services. It's not dynamic. It is based on a survey. And for those who might remember, maybe similar to the Good, Bad and Ugly business fitness report that we used to all love as well. So what Ignition is now built in is some validation around the price that you've got for each of your services within this proposal. Further to that, once we present that price to a client, we can actually ask them for their payment details up front, which guarantees you'll never have to chase a client for late payment on an invoice. It guarantees zero debtors, and it enables you to bill for ad hoc work over the course of the year very, very quickly as well. And then finally, compliance. We've talked a lot about this, Beck, perhaps too much over the last 6 months, but helping you to tick that compliance box and get an up-to-date TASA compliant engagement letter signed by your clients is also important. Anything I've missed there, Beck?
No, I don't think so. But this is the exciting part.
This is the exciting part. So what I'm looking at now is actually building that proposal that you just saw on the client side. And as I mentioned, we have a whole library here of templates that are available. You can see as I scroll down the left, there's a few examples there that I can touch on, but we've just got quite a basic compliance agreement for a small business that I'm showing you today. So we've got our annual return, some tax planning and ASIC review. I've got some optional advisory services in there, so I've marked that as a client opt-in. I'm not including that in the quote, but I'm allowing my client to say, yes, I would like those services. I've got some quarterly services here, some monthly compliance, and then I'm also on charging my Xero subscription to that client through Ignition as well, because we all know that that is a really efficient and streamlined process that we all have when Xero like to go and update their prices, and we have to go and then update all of our recurring invoices for clients. That was a little bit of sarcasm. It's a very difficult process and we make it a lot easier. So you can see here, I've got a few services here. I've got some fixed fees there. Doesn't necessarily need to be a fixed fee. I can have hourly charge out rates, minimum fees, fee estimates, and I can also do things like take a deposit up front and finalize the balance of that on completion. What I'm going to do is analyze this price here for tax planning. What Ignition then allows me to do with this new feature is add any additional context. So I might say I position my services as premium and target high net worth individuals and businesses turning over, 1 mil plus. What I can then do is get a price insight, and Ignition will actually go and analyze real prices that clients are paying for this service. So this is not just a survey. This isn't anecdotal. This is data-backed capability that actually analyzes your service pricing and provides tailored pricing insights and suggestions live as you're building out a proposal. So it gives you a benchmark, a pricing suggestion, and then reasoning and context as to why that price was suggested as well. So that's the biggest thing that I want to communicate here. Unlike generic pricing benchmarks or guesswork, this feature really uses actual proposal data to give you insight into where you're sitting in the market. So you can see here, it's suggested that I actually increase my price, and it's given me a range there, a low and a high range. You can see on the left, it's also given me a bit of justification and reasoning as to why it's suggested that price. So this is looking at 14 monthly recurring services that are ranging between those options with a median of $55. It's recognized that I've said, hey, I want to position my services as premium and target high net worth individuals and slightly larger businesses. And it's given us some geographic consistency there as well. So I think this is pretty exciting. What I can do is set my own price, or I can use the suggested price and apply that here. So that's now sitting in the mid-range. Of course, if you go and change the scope or the inclusions of that service, it is going to say, hey, you probably need to reanalyze that price. If you are changing the inclusions of what you're offering as part of that service and its description, but that pricing insight will then sit against that service going forward, which is fantastic. So, Beck, what do you think about this? I can see just so many applications for giving us more confidence around what we should be charging our clients.
It's so fantastic. I've used it multiple times in the last couple of days to validate my pricing for, existing common services. But then I've also had a couple of services that we don't necessarily always offer, or particularly maybe we don't charge for them or have any pricing. Chucking those in has been really cool. We've done ABN cancellations for years and years for free, just as part of this wind up thing. I actually created the service and popped it into a proposal yesterday, and it gave me all this feedback around different businesses common to mine who are charging for this service and suggested some pricing. So in that instance, I've been leaving money on the table for about 20 years, but not anymore.
And I think that the important thing to note there, Beck, is that, we still need to go and do our own due diligence around what we should be charging, like what our cost base is, because it is going to vary. We still need to go through and do the pricing analysis that we've talked about so many times and understand our desired margin and average recoverable rate and all of these sort of things. But what I think a feature like this does is just give us that extra layer of validation. And we get asked it all the time. What are others charging for this? Am I undercharging? I'm worried that I'm not being competitive. I'm feeling the fee pressure, but I feel like I need to charge this amount. So I feel like it just does give us that added layer of confidence to go, no, this is in fact accurate, what I've originally pitched, or wow, like I didn't realize that people were charging that much. Maybe I could increase. So it's very, very exciting as well.
Absolutely. It's the missing piece of the pricing puzzle that accountants have at the moment. Once we know our costs, we have no market analysis that is dynamic, and here it is.
Absolutely. So there was a bit of a button on screen there now for anyone who's keen to check that out, but I'd absolutely encourage you to do that. Just to reiterate, this has launched today, and everyone can actually trial this within Ignition right now. So if you're an existing customer, you can jump into your account and you can use up to 3 price insights for free on the trial. And if you're a new customer, you can sign up for a trial on the button which is on your screen at the moment, jump into the editor and do the exact same thing. Just to share a little bit about what the price will be for this, we have priced this at an annual fee of $399. It's an introductory price until the end of this year. That gives you access to 200 price insights, so enough to run across your client base. Gives you the tailored price benchmarks and price suggestions and reasoning details there as well. So if that is at all of interest, would love to chat with you further and explain how it all works and give you a more personalized run through of it all. That's largely what I want to show everyone today. I'll touch on one more thing just while I've got the mic, if that's okay. The beautiful thing after engaging all of your clients through Ignition is that I can actually put in place regular fee increases now as well, in tandem with using that pricing AI feature. So I can see all of my accepted proposals, all of those that are coming up to end soon, and I'm able to go through a really seamless renewal process where Ignition will prompt me to apply a price increase and remind me for those where I haven't perhaps done it as frequently as I should. Apply a price increase here, go and revise each of those different service prices, create my proposals, and then as a final step, I might run that AI price insight across those service lines, make sure that I'm accurate, make sure that I've got some validation on what I'm charging, and there we go. We've just got a $1,500 increase to revenue based on just doing a really quick price increase or fee increase exercise over the course of the year. Beck, I know for a fact you guys are using this. How does this work for you? And I assume you've done some rollovers in the last couple of months as we've ticked over to the new financial year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the combination of the renewal feature, just being able to renew and then to do like these blanket increases, it helps when we're a little bit under the pump and can't necessarily dive in and do a full pricing exercise, but know that we have a minimum amount we want to increase by and that we're confident in. It just, it's all about saving time and making sure that our engagement process isn't onerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Beck, and again to our panelists. That is all I wanted to show of Ignition today. But if anything that I've shown you has sparked interest, please feel free to respond to this form that's on the poll, that's on the screen. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen. If you'd like us to send you a free trial link where you can test this out for yourself, if you'd like us to sign you up for that webinar next week, which is going into more detail and a few more use cases around how you can implement this within your firm, or if you'd like us to give you a call if you have specific questions that you weren't able to ask in the Q&A here, or perhaps explore using Ignition for your practice if it's not something you're doing already, please feel free to vote on that poll there on the right, and we will absolutely be in touch ASAP. But finally, wanted to say a big thank you to our guest speakers today, Sarah, Jason, and Shannon. Really enjoyable conversation, and thanks, Beck, for hosting like an extraordinaire as usual. Hope you all have a great afternoon and or evening wherever you're tuning in from.
Have a great Thursday, everybody. Bye.